guys, welcome back. It's Josh with the Financial Advisor Car Guy. This week we're going to talk about the Mach-E. As you can see, it's back. The dealership did have it. If you guys remember, a couple weeks ago I was talking about and actually complaining about how long and how unprofessional the Ford dealer was. We scheduled like 2 months in advance to get this thing some warranty and recall work done. And we dropped it off literally after scheduling out about 2 months. And they called us and said, some of the parts we don't have yet, we're going to need to keep the car. Well, initially they implied that they only were going to need to keep the car a couple of extra days. And that was not the case. They ended up keeping it for 28 days from start to finish. It was a Tuesday that we dropped the car off. And literally 4 Tuesdays later, we were able to pick it back up. So 28 full days, and as you can imagine, that's super annoying. During those 28 days, we were down a car, which is a weird problem to have, being as we have like 1,000. But we had some snow and ice and lots of rain and all the things. And so most days my wife would just drive the Raptor and I would just drive the R8, which I don't really love, especially when the roads are a little bit icy. Even though the car is all-wheel drive, the tires are incredibly slick, and the car doesn't weigh that much. So it's not super fun to drive in the ice or in the rain, or in cold conditions, I should say. So we did carpool a little bit. The 55 is sitting in the driveway with bags over the doors because the glass is still out. That is a project that I'm going to start working on here in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully, I can bring the truck in and keep it nice and warm here inside the garage and get those doors put back together. I do still want to paint the interior. As I've had time, I've primed a little bit, but I really haven't done very much work on the truck. So that said, that is next on the docket. But in the meantime, like I said, I do want to talk about the Mach-E, and I have my Ford invoice right here, and I'm going to go line item by line item real quick and just talk to you guys about the recalls and a couple of warranty pieces that we had on the car. And then kind of get your feedback. I'll have you comment down below. Do you guys think that these maybe 5 things should have taken 4 weeks? The answer is no. But let's start with number 1. Okay, so the very first thing on the Mustang Mach-E was the, they call it the high voltage battery junction box and secondary onboard diagnostic control module. So those are 2 things that came with a service upgrade or a service software update. And so if I just kind of read through here, it basically says perform service action, replaced the high voltage battery junction box, started verifying no codes in battery energy control module, performed battery energy control module reprogramming, module installation routines, de-energizing high voltage battery and collecting voltage codes, then installing, draining coolant from the high voltage battery and disconnecting the harness, unbolting and removing the battery. So they actually took the battery out of the car completely. Opened cover, replaced high voltage junction box at that point, reinstalled cover and installed high voltage battery, reconnected coolant lines and topped off coolant with vacuum assist machine, reprogrammed entire powertrain control module, battery energy control module, and secondary onboard diagnostic control module. It basically says programmed modules to the latest calibration and update with software. Okay, so that was the main issue. And basically what all that just means is there was a period of time where several Mach-E's had caught fire, and they'd figured out that this battery control module or this powertrain control module, battery energy control module, what that was doing was transferring power so that you'd plug in, you'd go to a supercharger or whatever and charge your car. And it didn't matter so much if we're charging here at home because we're not a super fast charger. We're using just regular 220. And, when you get to some of the Electrify America or the Charge Point or some of those other, faster, bigger charging units, what was happening was people were rapid charging, jumping in the car, and accelerating really quickly. And for some reason, there was some power issue. They had connectors melting and several Mach-E's actually caught fire. And so they pinpointed it to this module that basically wasn't somehow correct. It was not transferring the power correctly, or something was happening. And anyway, that was the deal. You rapid charge your car and then you drive rapidly and it would essentially combust in one particular module. So that's been a recall for about 2 years. And it's something that we knew we needed to address, but we just kind of took our time. We did look at it the very first time Ford mailed us something saying, hey, there's this recall. We called our local Ford dealer and the part was like months out back ordered. So we just never called back. Wasn't a big deal, but now we've got it fixed. The next thing was what they call the charge cord stuck reprogramming battery charge control module. So battery charge control module, basically some error indicated that the charge cord was stuck. And I'm not exactly sure what that means. It does say recall here. So this may not have affected us. We may have never seen this being a thing, but apparently there were times where you'd unplug your car and the car would still think that it was charging. Like it didn't realize that you unplugged. So charge cord stuck, reprogram battery charge control module. So that's it. It just says reprogram. That's all they did. That was the work. It says reprogram SOBDM, reprogram included anti-lock brake module, secondary onboard diagnostic control module B, control module C, secondary onboard diagnostic control module, powertrain control module, and battery energy control module. So that was just a software update. Basically, they went through and reprogrammed everything to work appropriately. So software, no parts, right? No parts here. The third thing, perform field service action as needed, replace the electronic parking brake harness connector. So this one says quantity 2. It does say performed service action, recall, replaced both electronic parking brake harnesses. So there were some parts associated with that. There are 2 parking brake harnesses. I believe there's just a parking brake on each of the rear wheels. And so they must each have their own harness coming from wherever the module is. Both of those were since replaced. The next one, recall number 4, had something to do with the vehicle paint. Now, the very first thing we did, this car had maybe 300 miles on it. We went and had it completely PPF'd. There's clear PPF. Almost the entire car is covered in a clear paint protection film. So what it says here is they did inspect door hems, checked sealant issues. It does say performed paint sealant issue, inspect door hems and paint seal, verify driver and 3 passenger side doors passed inspection. No paint sealant issue found, no further action found. So that one, no parts, no labor, outside of just inspection. My guess is that's less than an hour of just them looking around to make sure that all the problematic spots were addressed. But again, we've got this paint protection film. Even the recall on certain painting areas, the paint might fail, but it shouldn't or won't on our car. And then the very last thing, and I'll talk about this one before I read it. This one was just a warranty. This was not a recall. This was a warranty issue. But basically, when you get in the car and you fasten your seatbelt, just like every other car, if you don't fasten your seatbelt, there's a chime, right? Well, this car, being as smart as it is, actually has a sensor for every seatbelt, and it has a weight sensor in there too. So it will tell me, hey, there's a passenger in the back passenger seat and they don't have their seatbelt on, or back driver's side seat, they don't have their seatbelt on. Well, it got to the point where the driver's seat, right? I would click my harness, or my wife would click her harness, and the warning would change from no seatbelt, like it would recognize the seatbelt, but it would say something about status unknown, or as they put it, what did they say? Oh, seatbelt monitor fault. That's what it was. So you'd click your seatbelt, it would go from nobody sitting there to seatbelt fault. And so I read through, I'm not going to read it because it's a little bit lengthy, but basically they scanned the car and found that the back middle one was also faulty. And so, I think at that point, maybe they called my wife or something, and I should have verified before sharing this with you guys. But basically, she said, no, it's just the driver front seat. Don't worry about the back middle. I mean, if it's causing a problem, whatever. Well, so what ended up happening was they did replace the driver's seat belt buckle where you click the seat belt in, and then reprogrammed it, and it actually cleared the fault for the back middle seat too. So somewhere they actually share a circuit, and so when they were scanning the car, it came up that both of those were faulty, even though when you drive the car, it never said anything about the back middle. It was just the driver front. So anyway, the long and short of that is there was a part required for that. They needed a new buckle. But gosh, yeah, it was challenging. I mean, basically they kept the car for 28 days. There's 3 miles more on the odometer. So, I mean, they drive it, I guess, driving in and out of their garage, their shop, a test drive. I'm not sure exactly, but they did get everything remedied, and it does feel like driving a brand new car again. So everything is great. Everything works. There's no lights on, all that's fine and dandy, but it just is so frustrating that none of this stuff is so time consuming or I don't know. They shouldn't have had the car for so long. And I guess in my mind, and call me crazy if you want to, but my thought process is such that what they should have done is if they knew they didn't have all the parts when we dropped the car off, they should have called us the day before and said, hey, the parts aren't here. They won't be here for X amount of time. You can still drop it off if you want to, but if you don't want to, bring it later on. Because I guarantee this car didn't even get touched for the first week. I mean, truly, if they were waiting for parts and they were once we dropped the car off, they were quick to call my wife a couple days later and say, listen, it's not gonna be ready. Might have been later the same day or the next day even. It's not gonna be ready. We're gonna need to keep it. We'll call you when it's time for you to come pick it up. And that is unacceptable. And so, I'm not gonna put them on blast. I'm not gonna post their, the dealership's name or anything like that. I'm gonna chalk it up to maybe inexperience at the service department or just a true oversight. But if anybody wants to know the name of the dealership, reach out to me directly. And I'll tell you, I will. I don't know that I'm gonna go back to them. I don't think I'll give them my business again. But, again, it just depends. This was warranty and recall work. Didn't cost us a dime. They had the car 28 days. They gave it back to us with about the same charge as what we dropped it off with, which is fine. I'm not that worried about it, but at least it wasn't dead. My wife did get a couple of texts. The car notifies you when the battery dies or if there's the door's left open or whatever. And they ended up disconnecting all that stuff because it kept notifying my wife. This is like, again, 10 days after we dropped it off. Oh, the battery died or extremely low or, whatever. And so she was tired of getting those notifications. So she called and said, hey, you guys need to take care of this. It's bugging me. She turned off her notifications and they also disconnected whatever they were doing. So it worked out. And at the end of the day, like I said, the car is like brand new again. It's fine. It works. We have it back. But the time of year is a bit inconvenient for them to have kept the car literally 28 days to handle, 5 issues. And I think the most satisfying part of all this is right here. $0. They charged us $0. One thing that they did fix that was a complimentary repair was our back passenger tire. I think the valve stem must have had a little bit of a leak or it didn't seal properly or something. We had a slow leak on that tire. So every few days I would haul my compressor out and air up the tire for my wife. And I would imagine that the dealership, when they kept the car as long as they did, got tired of having to air up the tire, moving it in and out and all that. So they must have put a brand new valve stem in that thing because it's holding air perfectly now. We've had the car a few days. It has not dropped 1 pound of pressure. It is just maintaining, whereas before it'd probably be down. I would have had to air it up by now. We've had the car back several days now and I would have had to air it up, and I haven't. So that was kind of cool. I was getting ready to just go buy a new tire or buy a new set of tires. These tires have 30,000 miles on them, and they have some life left, but with that one losing pressure as rapidly as it has been, I don't think it's gonna wear as evenly as the other three. So I was getting ready to just either go have that tire repaired or again, replaced. And I don't have to now. We'll get a few more miles out of these tires before I go do that. So that's all I got for you guys this week. Thanks so much for watching. Yeah, I know it wasn't super exciting or anything, but you know, you Mach-E owners out there may have to deal with the same thing if these parts are not in stock and if they're a little bit hard for the dealerships to get. Yeah, you may go without your car for a week or 2 or 5 or whatever, and just be prepared for that. Most dealerships, I feel like, do offer loaners. I have a work colleague that also has a Mach-E, and actually I drove by her office a couple days ago and saw that there was a red Mach-E sitting out front, and hers is actually white. So I get to my office and I shoot her an internal intercom message, and I'm like, hey, cool Mach-E out front, you know, like it matches my wife's. And she goes, oh yeah, that's just a loaner from the dealership. I'm like, you suck. She went to a different dealership. She went to the one that we called initially where we bought this car. Well, they couldn't get us in for like 5 months, whereas the one we ended up going to could get us in after 2. So, but the other dealership has a loaner. So I'm, again, kind of concerned and confused why the dealership we did use didn't just furnish us a loaner or something. So anyway, again, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment down below. Don't forget to hit that notification bell. And most importantly, remember, may every investment you make be a good one. Till next time.